Namaste and welcome. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce a very special individual to the Lokvani audience, Bhuren Patel. Bhuren is actually running for state rep in Massachusetts. Very inspirational to see Indian Americans run for office. He actually started his career as a pharmacist, running one of the most successful independent pharmacies in Massachusetts. And he came to America when he was only 17 years old. And he has been doing tremendous work in the community. One of the biggest things I know that he did was during the COVID pandemic to bring vaccines in large scale to so many hospitals and so many community members. Bhuren, thank you so much for joining us. Namaste and welcome.
Namaste, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on Lokvani. You guys do an amazing service for the Indian community and have for years. And I really appreciate what you've started as a trailblazer in Massachusetts.
Thank you, Bhuren. So right off the bat, which constituencies which cities need to vote for you? We would like to know that. So please tell us a little bit. And, what all should we know as people are going up to vote for you in Congress?
Okay. So first of all, again, thank you for having me. My wife and 3 kids live in Needham. So we are going to be, I'm running for election for Norfolk 13th District in Massachusetts State legislation, which is Needham, Dover, and Medfield. So it's all of Needham, all of Dover, and a small portion of Medfield based on how the districts were done by the state. The reason I'm running is during the COVID pandemic, vaccine distribution was a challenge. And what the governor had done was started these mass vaccine sites that we all know, but the population we serve, not only as our customers, but is underserved, is those folks with severe intellectual and physical disabilities, and those seniors that were homebound and were not able to get out to go to these mass vaccine sites. So one day in frustration after a call with the governor's office and not being able to get vaccines for these individuals, I just said, if we're going to make change, I need to run for office. So fast forward 4 years later, when the current incumbent Denise Garlick decided not to rerun for office, this was a no-brainer for me. I said, I have to do it. This is my opportunity to make change. So here I am running as a state rep candidate.
My goodness, Bhuren, thank you so much. I mean, you seem like the problem solver that we need in government because
thank you.
I think this is one of the most important things. I think people, don't realize that people in government have a potential to make a large scale change. And I think if good, talented problem solvers like yourselves are in office, hopefully we will have make a lot of difference. And, so touched by your compassion to think beyond, just providing centers, but really to think for those that were underprivileged. So you certainly are a great candidate. Now you're running as a Democrat. Is
yes.
that right? And I would love to hear your platform. I saw quite a few interesting things, but I'd like your pitch to our supporters here.
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, just like 60% of Massachusetts voters, have been since I became a U.S. citizen in the early 90s, been registered as a unenrolled voter, which means I am independent. So when I was deciding to run, most of my values have always been lined up with the Democratic Party. So I had to pick a party to run for. So I chose to go with the Democratic Party and change my party affiliation. But during that process, the town clerk at Needham, the paperwork got mixed up. There was some confusion. And when I went to file the paperwork with the state office, they said I was still registered as an independent. So I had 2 choices: one run as a write-in candidate for a Democrat, or run as an independent. But as I mentioned, because my views are lined up with the Democratic Party, I decided to run in on a harder path, but as a write-in candidate for the Democrats.
So as a write-in candidate, you will still be on the ballot, or is the mechanics any different?
Very different. Great question. So the challenge I have is making sure that people write in my name on the ballot. So that's critical. I have spoken to the 3 town clerks and they are aware of my candidacy, and spelling is not a big focus. So long as the intent is there that they're voting for Bhuren Patel, they will count my ballot. We're also doing a sticker campaign where we are mailing out stickers. Actually, they're going out on Friday to potential voters, where they'll be able to just peel the sticker and stick it on the ballot where there's an empty spot.
Hopefully there are no other Patels running. So hopefully, even if they put in Patel, would that refer to you? Is that right?
Yes, I'm the only Patel running for office on this ballot.
Okay, so that makes it a little easy. Everybody knows how to spell Patel. So
yes,
I think that'll be a good thing to do. So
absolutely.
no, that's fantastic. I mean, again, you are obviously taking a very difficult path ahead, and more power to you. Now, so Bhuren, I'm just going to talk about the various platforms that I saw on your thing. So, and especially those of concern to Indian Americans. I think I love that there was a lot of focus on small business. You came from small, of course, made your business very successful. So could you address our small business owners and say, what challenges do you see and what opportunities that you think you can bring to the table?
Absolutely. And, I've been a small business owner now for 25 years. We just celebrated 25 years of independent pharmacy. So in pharmacy itself and in healthcare, some of the challenges we have seen is with workforce recruitment and keeping them, right? I mean, we just face such a steep ladder when it comes to these types of issues, right? We're competing against big box stores, we're competing against the hospitals, and not just for me, we're even talking about other businesses that face the same challenges, whether you're in software development or motel business or a grocery store, we're all facing those sorts of challenges, right? Some of the workforce that we need are ESL. So how do we help small businesses in our community specifically to get them in our state? I mean, you look at New Jersey, New York, you look at Texas, California, Chicago. I mean, there's so many places where Indians have been able to thrive in small businesses, yet we have a challenge. One of those things in the small business world was my wife and I had started, and Lokvani had done an interview for us. We started a home kitchen in Needham right during COVID. And we've had to close it since because we can't find cooks and help.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So I'm the owner of a failed business. What lessons do we learn from them? How to get staff, not only how to get staff, the workers that we're looking for is a challenge because how do you provide public transportation? So how do you get them from places like Lowell or inner city to towns like Lexington, Burlington, Needham, all of those types of towns. So that was a challenge. The other piece is health insurance, right? Every year we have seen as a small business, our health insurance going up by 20, 30%, especially post-COVID. How do we afford as small businesses to be able to sustain this and not cause that extra burden on our employees, right? So that's a big challenge for me. We've been, personally, I can tell you, we've been absorbing these double-digit increases so that we don't have to pass it on to our employees. But what I found is when you're in a small pool as a business, you don't have the leverage that big companies do, and we don't get the same insurance rates that others might qualify for.
Interesting.
So we have to level that playing field.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you are a major multi-billion-dollar corporation, the state and city gives you tax breaks to come into town. As we know, small businesses employ more people in the country than any of the large businesses.
Yes.
How do we give our businesses appropriate tax breaks to not only hire people, but to have them grow in their businesses, to help them train on the job? Those are incentives that we need to give small businesses to continue to be able to foster them. One big glaring thing that I see is there was an article in the Globe about a month ago. We're losing about $3 billion in revenues from kids between the ages of 25 and 40 leaving the state to go other places where they're more affordable. So as a small business owner, this worries me. How can we keep the talent we have? They come here to go to school and then they leave. So how can we as a state start to put a plan together that we can retain such high level talent that is leaving us?
That is really so important. So many beautiful points you brought up. And hopefully, you do have some solutions. I see the point about negotiating rates for health insurance. I think that's a very important thing. But what is the solution for the transportation? Because I really feel that there is a big opportunity for, people who may be unemployed to find, jobs in other areas. But this transportation, I think, is a huge issue. So how do you think you might be able to solve that?
A great question. So what I have looked at in our own business, because one of my pharmacies in Waltham, and there's one bus that runs from Watertown Square to the end of the bottom of my street, and then you have to climb up a big hill to get to my pharmacy. So we're unable to get them. Likewise, there's so many folks in inner city, not just in Boston, but you look at towns like Lowell, where there's a large Indian population, but they don't have public transportation. They
Yeah.
don't drive, right? So I have offered, what we did at the kitchen was we would pay for an Uber to
Ah,
literally pick up people and bring them to work, or have our own delivery drivers take our cars to offer to pick them up,
yeah.
right? But hopefully as a legislator, we want to be able to have incentives
Yeah.
like this, creative solutions on how can we move folks from one place to another that don't have access to a car, that don't have access to money to pay for Ubers. We have to be able to provide it, right? Yes, we have a robust commuter rail system, but let's be clear, it doesn't work in every community.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
do we get from point A to point B and provide a solution?
I think that's just fabulous. Great, great points. And I really hope you get elected and you get to solve
Thank you
it.
so much.
I think it's not just a benefit for the small business, but this is the opportunity that we can provide to those who may be unemployed. I mean, I think you're attacking both ends of the problem, and I
Right.
think that would be really a tremendous opportunity for inner city kids, for other kids, kids and adults, who may be looking for opportunities. I know that when I worked with organizations like Saheli and others, this becomes a very big problem. So thank you for thinking about that. And again, the second thing I saw that was, of course, health. You had a lot of interesting thoughts there, and I know that that's something that's of great concern to the Indian community as well. Would you like to share your platform about health that you're working on?
Absolutely. So, as a pharmacist working in the healthcare system, we've seen a lot of changes, right? And we are in a state that has one of the most advanced healthcare systems in the world.
Yeah.
People come here to Boston to get cured or
Right.
get treatments. How are we not able to make a platform that healthcare is accessible to everybody in our state? Yes, we have almost like a universal healthcare system where, employers are expected to, if you have more than, so many employees, you're supposed to give healthcare insurance. But what about those people that fall under the radar, right? That don't have access, even people that do have health insurance, there's not enough practitioners anymore, right? You cannot find a PCP to save your life if you just come to this country, or if you are just graduated and now you're looking for health insurance. And big healthcare networks are saying we don't have primary care physicians. You might have to wait 6 months to a year. So we need to be able to find a solution to take care of these people, right? There's more and more people have started using nurse practitioners, but it's still not enough. We're looking at access, right? Affordability is one thing that we talked about with the rates continuing to go up. Small businesses are not able to negotiate. You can't maneuver through the system. Now let's look at the elderly for a second. It is a very complex system. And for me, what worries me, especially of our community, because I have my mom that would visit here every few months, if you don't have a relative or if you don't have somebody that understands the system, how do you access it, right? And that's one piece. Then there's the physical access. When talking to my constituencies, the elderly here, they don't have rides. They're not capable of driving. Their kids live in different states, different countries sometimes. How can they get to appointments?
Yeah.
Right? So that's a piece that's so solvable. We should be able to get these folks the care that they need.
Yeah.
And sometimes they just say, you know what, I can't get there. I'm not even going to go. And that's where things get worse. So that's another piece of the healthcare system that we need to look at. We need to look at insurance plans that are covering cost of medications, the PBMs that are taking in the middle. How can we make it more affordable? And everybody's blaming each other. Our budget has gone up every year, and yet in the same token, we haven't been able to reduce any significant manner of how healthcare costs have come down.
Yeah. And this is something I need a whole interview with you on. Nobody understands healthcare costs. I mean, the doctor says it's the pharma company, the pharma company says it. So we will do a whole interview on that. But I did.
Oh, sorry, one more point, right? When doctors have to look at, have so many patient visits per day because there are quota systems, how much care are you really giving, right? I mean, there's a lot of even doctors are frustrated with the system. Less people are applying to med schools because the system is so paperwork burdensome and they're not getting to do what they love to do.
I hear you so much. And also, I think technology has not been leveraged enough. I hear, I may be wrong about that, but there are people saying that the records are not, compatible, all of that. Lots of questions there. But I did want to bring up that point about the PCPs. I mean, the transportation, you had some great ideas. So I think there are two issues that need transportation, and I'm glad you brought that up. But what about PCPs? How do we solve that problem?
So it's a very good, difficult question. We should have seen this coming, right? A lot of has been driven by insurance companies, making them do more and more and more work. So I know personally so many doctors that have opted to, step out of that field, go into pharma, go into concierge practice where they're charging a fee because they just can't afford to do what they're doing and be overburdened. So how to solve it is a combination, right? We need to be able to give doctors the ability to have more job satisfaction that will, this is a long-term process now, right? We're already in the middle of a crisis. We can't solve it tomorrow. So we have to think out loud. How can we put stakeholders at the same table and say, we need to solve this? Yes, we've started using nurse practitioners and physicians assistants in all sorts of fields in medicine, but where can this stop, right? A lot of more people are going to urgent cares, which has been a Band-Aid solution for not filling up the ERs. I know I'm not answering your question directly because there's so many different points.
Of course.
But I think we have to all sit down together and say, this is a crisis.
Yeah.
The stakeholders, we need to solve it 2 years from now, 5 years from now. And what happens when our kids get older? And our elderly are getting older every day.
Yeah.
How do we fix that?
Sure. Actually, one of the things I keep thinking about is in the 60s, that's how the Indian doctors came to America, right? Because there was a crisis. And I also heard from others thinking about nurses, being immigration of nurses or doctors, from other countries. That was also some things that was suggested. But I am sure once you think through this in a beautiful way, I'm glad you're paying attention to it. I think that's the first step, right? Like, let's understand that this is an issue and let's, work on it. So thank you for that, Bhuren. Really.
And you bring up a really good point, right? We have a crisis. Like if you take lessons from England or Europe, they've opened their, gates, their doors to folks in spaces that they need help, right? You can get to a nurse or a doctor from India or any other country with much more ease than you can get here, right? So we might have to do that, a stopgap of having people come to help us during the crisis. Right. Ultimately, it's about patient safety and patient care.
Right.
We need to be able to make sure we're able to provide that.
Perfect. And hopefully maybe technology, I keep hearing, AI is coming in a big way. So maybe some of the routine things can be taken care of technology so that the doctor really focuses on what they, are best at or what they care about the most, which is patient care. I wonder if that's something that I'm looking forward to, the promise.
No, for sure. I mean, how much paperwork do they have to do right after they finish seeing a patient? They spend hours after to catch up on all their notes and, all the, like you said, AI, right? Like when you're focused in a room with the patient, there should be AI to be able to record the meeting and say, so it auto-fills all of the paperwork necessary or the note.
Yeah, all you have to go check it out and make sure you did it right. But I mean, who knows what the future holds. It's always exciting, to see that. And finally, like the other topic that was very close to my heart was education, which I
Yes.
saw, we are really frustrated, as you know, in middle and high schools to see curriculum on, especially the Indian history, the, Hinduism, we see still very colonial views being painted there. And we have had a challenge of how do we make a difference? So do you have thoughts on this? And in general, I think STEM subjects also, the focus, you are in a good, very rich town. The parents put a lot of effort, but if you're not there, that the challenges for STEM and other opportunities are also less. So your thoughts on this subject, Bhuren?
All very valid points as first generation immigrants. And I say this all the time that we haven't done a great job of educating our children on our culture, on our language, right? How many parents of other ethnicities are in the same thing, right? We speak English as our main language at home. My kids know some Gujarati, very little, not enough where I would like them to be.
Yeah.
But what we've done in our town is during Diwali, for example, my wife Parshavi would go to the class and bring little diyas
Yeah.
and do a little demonstration and celebration in the class. So, and other parents have done that. I know Icon here in Needham, the Indian community of Needham has done a fantastic job. Now, Diwali is a recognized holiday in their school system, right? So town by town, parents, we need to get involved more in the school system to make aware of our culture and
But
to,
I would
sorry,
take
go ahead.
that I think people are doing more, but the
Right.
curricula is the problem, because that is really when kids encounter that curricula, they say, this is not what this is not how I live, So
Right.
I didn't know, and that's a state issue, I think. So I didn't know. For example, you're talking about Diya. I remember my daughter many years ago, 17 or 20 years, going with a swastika plate. She didn't know
Right.
what that is, and
Right.
immediately she was hauled up by the principal. And it is happening even today in the schools, right? So how do we deal with these kinds of things in educating our teachers and making sure our curricula aligns with our values?
Right. No, so it starts at the state level, like you said, right, with the education department to say, hey, listen, this is about diversity, inclusion, equity, right? So it is time we start to incorporate just not our culture, but how else do you give our students an ability to view it in a larger scale, right? It's not just narrow-minded. And this is an issue that's going on in Needham, right? We have a lot of different communities. When something happens in a different part of the world, how is the school responding to effectively say, objectively say, you know what, this is a problem for us because we have people impacted by that. So to answer your question, we need to start that conversation at the state level as more and more Indians are in our community and more participants and more kids in the school systems.
Right.
The other piece on the education, Ranjani, I am focused on is social media, right? Um, when you read about, we're one of the only 8 states that doesn't have classes for social media and how to properly maneuver through that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And when I look at it, right, our 10-year-old, 11-year-olds have access to all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's an electron, footprint you're leaving, right? So if you do something not so wise at that age, we've all made mistakes when we were kids, that can follow you now through all the way through adulthood, right? How do you teach them to not make those mistakes, right? Posting something silly that could be offensive, something that could have been of sexual nature that shouldn't be on there. So it's really critical for me as a parent that we teach our kids to be more mindful of what's happening, right? And it's an addiction. We know all the good and the bad about social media and cell phones and all that. How do we draw that fine line? It's a struggle between parents and kids of where do we draw the line on teaching them.
I love that. And again, what I see is that social media can be a very productive tool, just like the television, in the old days, people thought
Right.
it's negative, but can be a productive tool. But good point to let the children know, how do we navigate it? How do you understand? How do you curate what's coming to you other than what you post on it as well to understand so that we don't get into our bubbles and say, okay, you know, what is disinformation and what is real information? I think
Exactly.
beautiful. Critical thinking is getting more and more important in life, I think.
The other piece that concerns me is mental health and substance abuse,
Yes.
right? I mean, we would be naive to think as parents and caregivers that this doesn't happen. As a healthcare provider, I see this all day. And we need to be more mindful of the health and well-being of our children, not just physically. I mean, I know we go to the doctor's office once a year with our kids, right? Hey, they do the physical, but what about up here, right? How are they in a happy place? What struggles do they have? I mean, how do our state has done, and we've all done a good job of substance abuse, but how do we continue to promote that message in our school systems on, hey, don't think that you are not susceptible to something happening with your child,
Oh my goodness.
right? So
And we
these are
see
parts
this.
of the curriculum that I want to see more focus on. We want to make sure we're raising healthy children, mind and body.
Yeah. I mean, I think the case with the violence, right? Every time there is something happening, it is because of mental health issues.
Right.
It seems to be front and center. So I'm so glad you're looking at that. I know it's a lot on the school system to take on. I mean, I think that's the other thing that I'm noticing. The teachers are also complaining that they have to do a lot more than teaching, which is,
Right.
and
Right.
so a
And it's so funny you brought that up because 20 years ago, right, we didn't have that. Teachers are almost like in a bubble, right? A microscope.
yeah,
Anything that happens, it gets spread so quickly. And like you just said, it's a stressor on the teachers, with parents having more information, having, more of access to them, that they're more critical. And teachers are getting burnt out by all of that sort of
yeah,
stuff. And
yeah,
kids are bringing more mental health issues to school.
yeah,
How do you learn to deal with those as
yeah.
teachers too? It's a great point, and it's something that needs attention.
Tension. Yeah, I think hiring teachers too. We are seeing in our own town, especially bringing diverse teachers. We always say we want Indian, teachers, but then, the challenges of how do you find them, is always something that we are seeing. So more power to you, Bhupen. I can see that you are thinking
Thank
about
you.
all of this, and you're ready to go. I can see the energy in that, So,
So,
any other messages for our
no,
viewers?
absolutely, right. I have been in business. We have a ton of challenges every day, right? Dealing with insurance companies, getting paid the fair wages that we should, taking care of our employees, finding employees. And then there's those challenges that are not actually quantifiable. And what I mean by that, right? The world is changing. How do I stay ahead of the game? What do I need to do today to make sure my business is sustainable in the future? And that's how I look at, change and progress. It's not about today. Like, just to give you a couple of things, right? This housing crisis has been going on for a couple of years now, right? The Stewart, why didn't we do something and have a better plan in place? The Stewart healthcare crisis, people knew about this a year ago. We didn't fix it, right? How do we fix this? We know about this housing crisis. There's not affordable housing. We're looking at it now. The governor's put out a great plan with 5 billion plus in affordable and more accessible. But I want to be looking at what are going to be our issues 3 years from now, 5 years from now. Look at our infrastructure.
Yeah.
Where are our elderly? And that's what makes me different from others, is the ability to think forward, to be able to build a consensus and say, we should be solution driven, just like I'm in my business, and move faster than we have been.
I love it. What I see most important about you, you have the energy, and I can see on day, what is it, -1, you will be on your job. I can see that, and I really, hope that all of your constituents definitely, will support you and write in for PATEL in your
Yes.
ballot.
Thank you so much.
And the constituency is, what is that again? Could you remind everybody which are the towns?
Norfolk 13th district,
Yes.
and it's Needham, Dover, and Medfield.
So Needham, Dover, and Medfield people definitely need to practice PATEL and write that in into their into their the write-in thing that we do. And I really wish you so much luck, and I really hope that you also inspire other Indian Americans to run for office, because those with ideas, who have run businesses, who have been in different professions, certainly can bring a beautiful view to the State House and make a change. And also, I wanted to end by saying that you have promised to donate all your base salary to charity as well. What motivated you to do that? And we will end on that note.
Okay. So again, everybody could use $80,000, right? I mean, who can't? I got 3 kids still in college and young that we could use it. But this country, this state, this city, this town has given me so many opportunities I'm very thankful for. And I want to be able to pay it forward. And the best way I can think of is, like Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see, right? So there is no personal gain for me. I just want to do this, make it a point that, listen, I'm working for you. You're my customer. I want to make changes that we need.
Wow, that is beautiful. I can see, your heritage. You, Mahatma Gandhi, and I think as Indians, I mean, giving back has been a very important part of who we are. And when we are in public service, this idea that we should do it just for public good, I can see that coming from your heart and, of course, your words. So more power to you. So Needham, Dover, and Medfield people, please practice PATEL and go to the ballot. And the election is on what day?
September 3rd.
Okay, so September 3rd, Needham, Medfield, and Dover people, please go and please support Bhuren Patel, because I can see that he will make much difference in the world today. Thank you, Bhuren, for your time, and really wish you all the best.
Namaste. And Ranjani, thank you so much. Thank you for all the great work you do for the community, and I appreciate this time.
Thank you. Thank
Namaste.
you. Namaste.